All right, hello everyone, and welcome to this very short lunch session at the conference. I see some of you already brought some lunch, others will get some lunch after, so we won't make this too long. This session is going to be about teaching Tableau at your company. I'm Jim. I've been working at Logitech for 5 years now, and for the last 2 years I've been helping to develop a training program around Tableau. So training professional workers is quite difficult because everyone has their own preferences of how they would like to learn, right? Tableau is already associated strongly with self-service, so it's logical that people say, well, I don't really need education, I'll figure it out myself. And are they really all that wrong? I mean, Tableau offers an interface where it's quite easy to just experiment and you can't really break too much. There's lots of online videos that Tableau makes available, so you can learn at your own pace and figure out the topics you want to learn more about. And there's great blogs available and community projects that help you enhance those skills even further, learn more tips and tricks, and actually challenge you to become even better. And then if you still have some questions that you can't fix, you can always go to the Tableau forums where people will answer your questions in hours, if not minutes, and you'll probably get a very good result. So, with all that, how many of you actually did any training before you started using Tableau? So, hands up, yeah, me as well. All right, so that's about half of you. That's actually a really good, I mean, there's plenty of people actually followed some training here. That's good to hear. So yeah, the question, of course, is it really better to just kind of leave those kids alone and let them experiment themselves? So at Logitech, we had such an approach for a long time. We would give people a desktop license. We would tell them, hey, here's the link to the videos that Tableau has. Figure it out. And we didn't really look to see if people actually understood the tool very well. And that was a bit of a challenge because people would feel a bit uncomfortable, they wouldn't feel comfortable using the tool or the data, and they wouldn't be using Tableau as much as we would like them to. So we had quite some users who didn't actually use Tableau that much, and we wanted to change that. And the main problems they were seeing was that it was hard to dedicate the time to actually do the training. You have your busy day-to-day job, so when do you actually watch those videos, do those exercises? Secondly, if you're cherry picking some topics to learn about, you might skip some other topics that are fundamental to the new things you want to learn. So either you have to backtrack or you just don't understand the topic very well. And thirdly, if you figure it out yourself, it's a very good risk of actually developing some bad habits and some inefficient ways of solving problems. So we decided we wanted to improve that whole process of onboarding new people, and as such we decided we want to have more, and also get some better results on our investment. So to do this, we wanted to explore an approach where we had more classroom training, instructor-led training, which would give people an excuse to schedule some time for themselves to do the training. It would also make sure that we actually cover the topics in the right order, so people learn what they need to learn before going to the next topic. And finally, it allows us, while they're learning Tableau, to also teach them about the best way to use Tableau, not just any way to use Tableau. So, after some small scale experiments, we launched our first Tableau training in the fall of 2017. It started with just the basics training, which was a total of 6 hours of training. So it's very similar to what Tableau offers as their basic training. It's aimed towards people who never used Tableau before, and we wanted to get them to a level where they can make a basic dashboard using basic formatting, basic calculations, and basic graph types. We also split it up into two blocks of 3 hours just to make sure people didn't get completely burned out. So we also tried to schedule it on different days so people didn't have to step away from their normal job for the entire day. You could kind of split it up a little bit throughout the week. We did do the trainings in person, so it was a bit of a challenge as we're a global company to actually have to travel to all these sites, which meant we couldn't repeat that training all that often. The goal, again, was to get people to a point where they could use dashboards, and for that we used the following topics in this training. So we did a bit of navigation and connecting to data, and then cover kind of all the basics of making graphs, formatting, calculations, and then finally creating a dashboard. So for each of those topics, we would start with some instruction, of course. We needed to explain the topic that we were going to cover, but also we wanted to show what this feature is enabling you to do in Tableau. Of course, the next step is even, why is this a useful feature to have? So you definitely want to cover that as well, and potentially add some examples of use cases where you've used this feature before. In the end, the most important thing is that people understand what they're going to learn, but also why they're going to learn this. And depending on the topic, it might be worth doing a quick demonstration to show where a certain button is located, or where a certain, how you write out a certain calculation. Screenshots can only go so far. So after about 5 to 15 minutes of instruction, we would actually do a quick exercise, and this would alternate throughout the training. So often these exercises are very tiny, it's very well-defined goals, very well-defined starting points. We tell them, okay, go to this data source and do these actions to get to this result. And that really helps you to isolate exactly what they need to learn. But it also has two other benefits why we do these exercises. First of all, if you do an exercise, the information gets much better retained than if you just have instruction all day long. So by alternating instruction and exercise, you actually make sure that people remember what they've learned. And then secondly, if you have to repeatedly work in Tableau to do these exercises, you also have to repeat a lot of the actions that you do during training. You need to build a bar chart probably 10, 20 times over the course of the training. So by the end of it, that's almost automatic. So even when you're doing, let's say, formatting, you still need to kind of redo some of the steps you learned in making charts. So that also helps to really build up that confidence. Typically, these would be done under supervision, so there would be at least 1 or 2 instructors walking around, helping people out, make sure that nobody really gets stuck. So one of the important parts of this training is the concept of scaffolding, which means that the topics actually build off each other. So the way we order the topics within the training also means that we can use the results from one topic as the starting point for the next one. So maybe you've already made a bar chart in the creating graphs topic, but now when we do formatting or color, we go back to that same chart. It also helps people see that that's the normal process for building a dashboard. You don't just do these isolated exercises, but actually connect a bit. And then the last topic, building the dashboard, takes it, of course, one step further, where we take all the different graphs we built during the training and actually use them as building blocks to build that dashboard. So there were some challenges, and as any actual teacher, I mean, I'm never trained as a teacher, I just try and improvise a bit, but as any teacher can tell you, one of the hardest things within training or teaching is the concept of pacing. So you need to make sure that people can follow along, but it's also not too slow. And what we found is, especially during those exercises, we tended to wait quite long for the last one to finish, which meant that the people who were a bit quick, they would, well, finish early, and potentially they would be a little bit bored. But what we did find as well is that those people tended to look around, see if their neighbors were already done, and help them out if they could. So in the end, it wasn't a total disaster if they finished a little bit early. Also, the whole pacing within the training, of course, you need to make sure that there's enough time for every concept and to give people a little bit of time to actually let it sink in before going to the next concept that you want to cover. And we initially also had the idea of doing an advanced training, and due to time limitations, it would always have to be within the same week of the basics training. And the intention was that people who went to the advanced training had some initial knowledge of Tableau already. But what we found is that people thought, well, this training is only happening now, so I'm just going to do the basics and the advanced training in the same week, and they would get completely overloaded. And where at the end of the basics training, they were feeling confident, they were feeling happy, they were going to use Tableau. By the end of the advanced training, they were feeling a little bit depressed, and they thought they couldn't do anything anymore. So it was a bit of a challenge. Then we also found that in our training, we use, like almost everyone, I think, had just a few data sets. In our case, we use some sales data, we use some actually mostly sales data. And the teams that we support are in supply chain, they are, well, some of them are in sales, some of them are in finance. So it's not all data that they recognize very well, and especially coming out of the training, they haven't actually practiced with their own data yet. And they could be quite proficient with the tool, but if they don't feel comfortable with the data, it doesn't always really breed a real confidence in how to use Tableau in their own work. And that also ties into the lack of follow-up. So some people would come in, they wanted to learn Tableau, but they didn't really have a project afterwards where they could practice it. And if you don't practice it, of course, you, well, lose your skills, lose your confidence, and when the opportunity comes up to use Tableau, you feel like maybe there's an easier way to solve this than having to relearn all those Tableau concepts again. So to fix some of these challenges, and especially the ones around data confidence, we actually introduced an additional chapter to our training. So in addition to the 2 times 3 hours of training and instruction and exercises, we wanted to include a final kind of assignment, final test. And the idea here is to give people a picture of a dashboard and a data set and tell them, okay, you've learned all these things now, here's the goal, here's the dashboard, and here's the data set, and here's a few tips and tricks. Try and build it. And the benefit was that we can make these very quickly, so we can make them for different teams. So even if everyone has had the same instruction with a generic data set, we can now give them a final assignment that's kind of tailored towards their team, which means they actually get to practice using their own data, and hopefully in a at least semi-realistic use case. So that really helped. We now have, well, I think we have 3 separate kind of team-specific final assignments already, and we're building those out as we do more trainings. And yeah, it really helps people to have a little bit more experience with their own data before they go out into the wild and have to do it all by themselves. And again, there would be instructors during this exercise as well to help them out, make sure they don't get stuck. And to cover some of the challenges around the pacing, we actually decided a few things. First of all, we wanted to record all the training. So if you ever need to rewatch a bit of instruction, if you ever want to look at the slides again, they're all going to be on our internal webpage. And nowadays, it's quite simple to record meetings, and trainings are kind of meetings. So just make sure you actually press the record button if you're doing a video conference, or find some other way to at least record the audio and the slides. And it's quite simple to then edit down that video to something that's manageable and people can watch again. Secondly, we also decided to scrap the advanced training. What we found is that there were more people actually getting disheartened by that training than actually learning a lot from the training. So we decided to do that one as a virtual training afterwards. So during the classroom training, we would only do the basics topics, and then we do a bi-weekly 1-hour training for a specific topic. So actually you help people digest some of the advanced topics at a bit of a slower pace, but also they can choose where to attend, and they can do it whenever they feel like they're ready to do that topic. In addition, we have a user group, like a lot of you maybe have at least heard about as a best practice. So we do have a virtual user group, again, because people are not located in the same place. We have to do it through video conferencing. It's a great way to share additional tips and tricks, to cover features that were maybe released after we did the training, so you couldn't have covered them in the basics training yet, and just share best practices, share dashboards, show how other people have been using these features that you learned in the training. So all in all, formal training is just a part of how people learn how to use Tableau. Obviously, there's plenty of other great resources, like I said in the beginning. There's great ways to, once you get to a good starting point, you can build on those skills and really improve. But I do believe strongly that formal training has a strong role to play in that initial building of the foundation for your new users. It allows you to dedicate some time, which is really nice, to step away from your normal job and actually learn the tool. It allows you to learn all the concepts in the right order to make sure you don't skip anything that's actually important. And then it allows you to learn things the right way the first time around, so you don't have to, unlearn your bad habits. So as I see it, a good training program is not just any brick in the wall, it's more like the capstone that holds it all together. So thank you very much.